So, what if the financial system, the one we've known our entire lives, is about to be completely rewritten? Today, we're going to dig into a blueprint for exactly that. We're talking about the dollar's fading dominance, the rise of these crazy new digital tools, and how it could all change the very definition of money itself. It is a huge topic, for sure, so let's just dive right in. And this is the line that really kicks everything off. It's not subtle, right? It frames this whole conversation as this massive, dramatic power shift. It suggests the very foundation of the global financial order is cracking. So, this isn't just about some new tech. This is about who holds the power. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the huge geopolitical shifts that are forcing this change. Then, we're going to get into how money itself is being redefined. After that, we'll dive into the new financial tools, see how they connect to the real world, and then wrap it all up with what this new playbook for society could actually look like. So, first up, a shifting world order. Look, to really get a handle on the new tools, we've got to understand the global pressures making all this happen. This is the big why behind everything else we're going to talk about. A huge driver here is this so-called de-dollarization movement. You've got economic blocs like BRICS, we're talking Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and they're busy building their own financial highways. They're creating alternatives to systems like SWIFT, which is the main network for global banking. The goal? To build what's being called an economic escape hatch to get away from U.S. sanctions and financial control. And this right here is a perfect example of that strategy in action. The Shanghai Gold Exchange is creating this parallel track where gold becomes the thing you use to settle trades. So just imagine an oil shipment being paid for, not in dollars, but in physical gold, what's being called unfreezable money because it's totally outside the reach of sanctions. This is a direct shot at the dollar's decades-long role in global trade. Okay, so if the old system is being challenged, it really forces us to ask a super fundamental question about its most basic part: money. I mean, what does value even mean in this new world? This brings us to a really core distinction in this whole argument. On one side, you've got money, defined here as something with real intrinsic value, like gold, that holds its worth across generations. Then on the other side, you have currency, like the dollar, which is described as just a debt-based entry in a ledger that's constantly losing value because of inflation. The whole point is that we should shift from trying to save in currency to holding real money. And this idea extends to the actual math behind each system. The traditional system is described as this fractional setup that just inherently multiplies debt, making value decay over time. In contrast, DeFi math is all about tangible accountability, where every digital asset is backed by real collateral. It's a proposed shift from trusting old institutions to trusting verifiable, provable math. All right, so we've covered the why, those big global shifts, and the what, this new definition of value. Now let's get to the how. Let's look at the specific financial technologies that are designed to make all of this a reality. Okay, one of the most mind-bending tools in this new financial world is the flash loan. The whole concept sounds impossible. You can borrow millions, even hundreds of millions of dollars, with absolutely zero collateral. The catch? The entire loan, borrowing it, using it, and paying it back has to happen in one single instantaneous blockchain transaction. Which, leads to the obvious question, right? How on earth is that even possible? How can anyone justify lending out millions of dollars with no collateral and what seems like infinite risk? Well, the magic, or really the logic, it's all baked right into the code. The loan is run by a smart contract with one simple, beautiful rule. If the borrower can't repay the loan plus a fee by the end of that single transaction, the whole thing is just reversed. It's not that you default, it's that the loan retroactively never even existed. Boof! For the lender, that means the risk is literally reduced to zero. But, and this is a big but, this power is a total double-edged sword. Flash loans can be weaponized to attack financial protocols. We've seen it happen. Attackers use them to manipulate prices or exploit vulnerabilities in the code. And the examples on screen, like Pancake Bunny and Cream Finance, these aren't just theories. These were real-world hacks that led to massive losses. So to fight back against these threats, the proposed solution is basically fortress-level security. The idea is to build safeguards directly into the code itself, We're talking everything from requiring multiple people to approve big transactions, to using advanced cryptography for privacy, and even using AI to spot weird activity in real time. The goal is to make the system mathematically secure so you don't have to rely on blind trust anymore. Now, these powerful tools aren't just for digital coins floating around in cyberspace. The next logical step in this vision is to connect them directly to the physical world, and that happens through something called tokenization. Tokenization is basically creating a digital twin of a real-world asset's ownership rights on a blockchain. So imagine the deed to your house, or the rights to a patent, or even a piece of fine art being converted into digital tokens. The huge unlock here is that this could make traditionally illiquid assets, things that are hard to sell, divisible and easily tradable on a global scale. Of course, that brings up a massive question. How do you trust that the digital token actually represents the real thing? This is where the source material suggests a brand new role for notaries. In this system, they become ethical governors. They're the human bridge of trust. They physically verify that an asset is real, and then they lock that verification onto the blockchain, creating an unbreakable and legally binding digital record. And that brings us to our final section. We've looked at the global pressures, the new definition of money, the powerful tools, and the bridge to the real world. So how does this all come together into a completely new societal playbook? Okay, here's a practical example of how these tools could be used. There's a platform called the Justice Fund Exchange, or JFE, that wants to completely reinvent credit. It uses flash loans to do these automated arbitrage trades, which is just a fancy way of saying it buys an asset in one place and instantly sells it for more somewhere else. The profits from those trades build a real-time, dynamic credit history for the user, one based on actual performance, not on old debt. The playbook for how you and I might participate has two phases. Phase 1 is pretty simple. Buy and hold the platform's tokens. But phase 2 is where it gets really interesting. It's about actively using those assets with tools like flash loans to generate even more wealth. The whole idea is to evolve from being a passive investor to an active participant, a market maker. So, when you connect all these dots, the grand vision being described here is nothing short of a fundamental reprogramming of society. It's a world where your credit is based on transparent data that you control, where physical property can be traded as easily as a stock, and where global trade isn't stuck behind political gatekeepers. And this quote, this really gets to the philosophical heart of the whole thing. The core idea is that trust itself is being moved. It's shifting away from traditional institutions like banks and governments, and instead, it's being embedded directly into the technology, into math, into code, and into the verified integrity of human actors like notaries. Which leaves us with this final, pretty profound question. If the rules that govern value, property, and trust are being fundamentally rewritten, are we actually watching the beginning of a new kind of social contract? One that's written not on paper, but in immutable, self-executing code? It's a massive dot, and that's where we'll leave you. Thanks for tuning in.